Hello and welcome to Magical Travel Adventure. I am Lauren, your host, and today I am here to talk to you all about what it's like getting on or embarking on a cruise. Now, every cruise is a little different, but there is some basic standards for what it's like to get on a cruise, and I want to go over some of that because a lot of people have questions on that. And if you are new here, hello, I am Lauren. I am a travel advisor. My information is below if you need help booking your next cruise or Disney or Universal trip. So let's get into it. As we talk about cruising, it's important to know that different cruise lines do different things. But while that's true, there are things that are pretty similar all across all the cruise lines. So I am talking about basic ocean cruising when I'm talking about this. So in these slides, the step one thing that you should be doing when you start a cruise and you've booked the cruise is you want to download the app. Different cruise lines are going to have different apps. Here, I have focused mostly on Royal Caribbean and Disney. Those are my two biggest sellers for cruising. So, these apps you can download, even if you didn't have a cruise, you could download them. You can make a login, but you really won't see a lot when you're at home. So, the reason to have these apps is typically around 30 days. Disney is a little different, but most cruise apps around 30 days is when you can really start to see some stuff. But some stuff will not be available in the app until you're actually on the cruise. But the stuff that you can do that's the most important is start to check in for your cruise. So when you're checking in for your cruise, you're doing things like putting in your name, uploading your passport. If you still have to upload your vaccination status when you're watching this video, then that's a thing too. So you can check in, you could take a picture of yourself because you do need a picture of yourself to get onto the ship. So there are just some things that you can take care of. And if you can't see certain things, just know that they will eventually come up. You might be able to see shore excursions. You might be able, Disney has like a countdown on how many days until your cruise. So there's all different types of things that you might be able to see in the app, but then there's things that you might not be able to see until you actually get on the cruise. So don't be too concerned that you can't see certain things. I know for our latest Royal Caribbean cruise, about 2 weeks before we got on the cruise, they started loading a lot of information so we could see what movies were going to be playing, when activities were going to be, but some of it wasn't available till we actually got on the cruise. But that is an important part because that's something that you can take care of when you're at home and when you have time to kind of look through things, get familiar with the app so you can kind of see how it works and get that login. Step two is figuring out when are you going to arrive. Now, I know this is all stuff that you need to do before you're actually getting on the cruise, but this is important information so that you know what it is that you need to get done before that cruise. Meaning, getting on a cruise is going to be different based on these steps. If you don't have the app, getting on the cruise is going to be different. If you don't have a pre-night stay, getting on the cruise is going to be very different. So these are suggestions to make your life easier to get on the cruise. So downloading the app and filling out any information that you can beforehand would be step number one. Step number two is figuring out how many days in advance you're going to come to before your cruise. So the big thing is you don't want to show up the day of your cruise. If you don't know, currently airlines are not going so well right now and they're not very reliable and on time. So you don't want to miss your cruise based on deciding to save a few dollars by not coming in the day before. And it's okay if you come in the day before. If your cruise is leaving on a Sunday and you come in Saturday night, that's absolutely fine. That's not something that you need to do. A lot of people for a Disney cruise will stay at Disney World for a few days or even just one night before their cruise and then go on to their cruise. Other people, we recently took a cruise from Alaska, so we stayed in Vancouver for actually 2 days beforehand to make sure that we got there on time and started to adjust to the time. If you're going over to Europe and things like that, you definitely want to go at least a day before to make sure that you get there so that the day that you're getting on the cruise, you're not worried that your flight's on time or that you're going to get there. And especially for Europe, you really need to fly the day before because they're ahead of us in time. So it's going to be pretty impossible to get there the day of your cruise. So just make sure it's important. A lot of times there are specific places that you can stay that are associated with your cruise line. And if you stay there, it just makes your life a little easier. It's closer to the port. There are ones that are closer to the port. There are places in Vancouver that are literally at the port that you can stay at. So it's important that you pick a hotel that's going to make your life easier if you're a little nervous about your first day, or if you're the type of person who likes to be there early or on time, then it's important that you're there early at your hotel and that you're close by to where the cruise is going out of to best help you plan. These are things that are going to make your life so much easier. Now, from that, you're going to need some sort of transportation, most likely, either from the airport or from your hotel to get to the place where the cruise is happening. And there are different ways that you can get there. Sometimes the cruise lines offer a shuttle bus, and it's for a very specific time. Typically, around the shuttle bus picks you up around 12 p.m. and then will bring you to the port. You also can hire your own car. You can do an Uber or Lyft. And I would say getting to the port, it's not as important this time how you get there. There's You do get a time assigned to you. So for most cruise lines now, you sign up for a time that you will show up to the port. And that's when you can check in and then get on your cruise. So those times can kind of vary anytime between 10 a.m. to like 2 p.m. So as long as you can get to the cruise sometime during that time, that's fine. And these times are just for basic cruising. Your cruise might be a little specialty one, so it might be very specific to a certain time. So don't, go that it has to be at this time. Um, I would say what I recommend is I would either do an Uber or Lyft if you are comfortable with that, a private car, or the transportation through the cruise line. The transportation through the cruise line is the last thing that I would pick, just because it's at a specific time and you don't really get to choose it. So your time might be earlier to get on the ship, but the um, bus time might be very different. So that kind of depends. I would say if you're in Europe and you're confused about the language, or you're just confused about how it's all working, go on the bus transportation so that you feel comfortable and okay, whatever, I'm staying at this hotel and this bus is going to pick me up right outside my hotel and it's going to bring me to the port and I'm fine. Then do that. You have to do what's most comfortable for you. If it's too concerning to get your own transportation, then that's fine. Or again, you can use a travel agent. Step 4 is making sure you have all your documents. Now, of course, having a passport, you would need to have this information way before your cruise. So we recommend that at least 3 months before your cruise, you have a passport. And yes, you should have a passport no matter what kind of cruise you're going on. There are closed looped cruises, which means they start and end in the same port. And if you start and end in an American port, then you technically do not need a passport. However, when you are traveling to other places that are not the United States, if something happens to you and you do not have a passport, it does make things more complicated and can make your life more complicated. Now, for kids, we get this question a lot. What do I do? I have like a 3-year-old. Should I get a passport? My child does have a passport. but you can just use a birth certificate. I would say that if you have an older child, anyone above the age of 10, you really should have a passport for them when you're going on any type of cruise. It's just for safety reasons that you just want that ease that you can, move about and not have to worry about not being able to leave at the wherever you are in an emergency. No one's hoping for an emergency when they're on vacation, right? Everyone's thinking like, yes, it'll be perfect and everything will go according to plan. But that's not always what happens. So you want to have that backup, and having your passport is just something that's going to help you in the future. Another thing that's going to happen about 30 days before your cruise, you will get your final documents. It's about 10, 12 pages. And in that will be a luggage tag, and it's a piece of paper that you're printing off. So it's nothing special. But this luggage tag will go on your luggage before you get to the port. And this is the luggage that you don't want to carry around with you. Sometimes this luggage you can leave it in your hotel and it will just make it magically onto the ship for you based on where you're staying and what the rules are. So you have to kind of know that. But this will definitely help you having this luggage tag on there so you're not lugging around all your luggage when you get on the ship. And I'll talk about that in a little bit too, like right now. So, step 5 is you're actually going to the port. So, it's the day of your cruise, your time is available. Now it's time to actually go to the ship. A lot of times when you're going to port, it's really that you're just going to this area. It's called a port, and the address is like the port or Port Canaveral, like for in Florida, where that's close to Disney. And what happens is you are dropped off at basically a big warehouse. Now, depending on the port, it might be nicer inside than others, and it might, kind of look more not like a warehouse, but a lot of places just look like a warehouse. So, depending on where you're dropped off, depending on the port, you are dropped off kind of in like a parking garage or right in front of a building. And there is going to be a place where you can leave your luggage if you have those luggage tags on there. Now, you have to understand that there might be multiple ships being boarded all the same day, all at the same time. So, it's important that you understand what ship you're on and what cruise line you're on. You need to know that information so that when you see that information, you can drop your bags off at that certain location. And it's typically nothing fancy, it's people standing there with a sign that says, like, um, Disney, the fantasy, and there's big carts and you're dropping your luggage there because you have your luggage tag on there, and then you're walking into this building. So it's nothing fancy if you're dropping off your luggage yourself. Now, if you are staying at one of the hotels that the cruise line has put aside for you, they often say just put your luggage outside your room the morning that you're leaving, and the people in the hotel will bring it to the port for you. Again, you still need those luggage tags on there, but it does help if you're staying at one of those hotels because then you don't even have to bring your bags, especially if you have larger bags. You don't have to bring those bags out with you even out of the hotel. You just leave them outside your door and woo, then they appear in your room on the cruise hours later. But do know that those bags are going to be out there, are not going to be in your possession for hours. So if you're leaving them out at 8 in the morning, you might not get them back till 8 p.m. that night. So you want another bag that you're bringing on, that you're carrying on with you, that is lighter, that's maybe just easier to carry around, that just has a few things. So if you need to change for dinner or get ready for dinner, and your bag hasn't arrived yet, then all your stuff, you have some stuff that's in your room. If you have kids, we had snacks, we had our special stuffed animals, we had our pajamas for the night, and we had our toiletries. And we actually had our bathing suits also with us because that's all things that we might be doing. And we didn't know what time our luggage was going to arrive. So this is kind of like a really important way to pack. Um, we I often just take on carry-ons when I go onto a cruise, but sometimes I take if we're going for a longer cruise, I'll take a full suitcase. So you need to decide what it is, but you should not be taking on a full size suitcase onto the ship with you. You really should be checking that so that they can bring it later because it's going to be really hard carrying it around. And you're not guaranteed that you're going to be able to get onto elevators or you don't know when you're going to get into your room. So you've dropped your bags off, you're walking into this like warehouse building. Now is the part where you're like, okay, I have to be paying attention and I have to have all my documents out because it's very unclear sometimes when they're going to ask for certain documents and things like that. And I'm not really going to talk about COVID because I'm hoping that those policies are slowly going away as I'm talking about this because they have already started to go away for some cruise lines. So let's just hope that keeps going. So the check-in process is kind of different. You need to know, again, this is really important. There will probably be multiple cruises that are in port that day. So it is really important that you understand. You can't just say like, oh yeah, I'm on the Disney ship. If you're on the Fantasy or the Wish, you need to know that. Or if you are in Vancouver, we were in Vancouver, there were two princess ships at the same time in port. It's important to know what ship your name is so that you know where to go. Otherwise, it takes like a little while and they have to show you where to go. So from there, you're coming into this warehouse, you go to the ship that you are supposed to go to. And when you're inside, they're going to direct you. It's going to look like, oh my gosh, there's this huge long line. How are we ever going to get through it? But they actually do a very good job of it. There was a special line for people who had kids. There was a special line for people who had seniors. There was a special line if you had concierge. So just know that there are different lines for everyone. Now, we had one of the earliest check in times. Depending on your check in time, it might be a little busier. And you have to know the first time you get on a cruise, it might be easier just to get on as early as possible because there's so much unknown. For me, I would rather get on closer to the end because your room isn't ready yet. And I really value having my room ready when I get on the cruise. So we got on this last cruise we got on around 10 o'clock. We got in the check-in process. It took about 20 minutes, I would say. And it was only because my child is 4 and it was a COVID thing. So they had to check all this stuff off. But we had to have our passports out and we had to have on our phone, we had to show that our tickets that were on our phone. We had done the pre-registering, the taking the picture, the things like that. Uploading our passports and things like that all to the app. The people who didn't do that, it took them over an hour for check-in. So that's why using that app in the beginning is so important. It does save you a lot of time. Now from there, after we checked in, so that's the first part, then we have to go through passport and customs. Now, everyone will always have to go through this at the beginning, but if you're not leaving out of the United States, you may have to go through this. And sometimes in the United States, you do go through this. It's sort of an odd thing. So you just have to know that you need your passports out and you're going to another room where literally they're just scanning your passport and saying like, okay, see you later. Um, then it is your time to walk on the ship. Now, for us in Vancouver, my husband and I, we track our steps on our watch. We had already done about 4,000 steps just walking around. So it is a long walk going from where you start to passport to then getting on the ship. Where we checked in was nowhere close to where we actually got on the ship. So understand that you are going to be doing some walking. And again, that's why you don't want to have so much luggage with you when you're doing this part because there's just so much walking. So when you get onto the ship, you typically get into the atrium. So this was our atrium. No, this is not our atrium. This was a past atrium that I have been in. And Sometimes it's grand. On Disney, I feel like it's much more grand. They announce you, you enter into the atrium, and it's gorgeous. On this last royal ship, we entered in, and it was a little hallway, and we just walked. It was nothing grand. It was just like, hey, you're getting on a cruise. So once you get on the cruise, typically your room is not ready. They will actually say in the app what time rooms are typically ready, and that's normally 1:30 to 2:33 when your room is available. And they won't open unless you're staying concierge, they really don't open those rooms for you. Now, some people, there is some way for people to hold your bags to get into your rooms early if you're concierge, things like that. So if getting into your room early like that is important, you really want to make sure you know the times and how it's all going to work on that ship. What people do once they get on the ship is there is a buffet available for you on the ship. Now, some cruise lines also offer you to make a reservation to have a sit down meal where there's a menu and you order and people bring things to you. So, if that, again, if the buffet is like so not your thing, just understand that some cruise lines offer you an option where you can sit down and order some food. Now, the buffet is a typical buffet. So when we got there, we were sitting down and I don't know, we just got some food. It wasn't overly crowded. Again, we were the first group of people that got on this cruise. And later on, the buffet got very busy because we did actually come back to it later. And there's very typical foods that you would find in any buffet. Depending on what cruise line you're on, there might be specific things. Depending on where you are in the world, there might be specific types of foods. So just know that. And you can sit there as long as you want. You can get up as much as you want. They will come and take away your plates. There's no like bussing your own table or anything like that. There are servers there that do all that. Now, this is an important thing to know is if you have a drink package or things like that, you might not have your room key yet because now what they do with room keys is they actually put them on your door to your stateroom. You don't get them when you get on the ship. So if you don't have that app to show them that you have a drink package or a specialty food package if you're trying to get food, just know that it's going to take a little longer for them to look that stuff up or help you find it on your app. So it's important. This is another reason why it's important to have that app ahead of time. But your drink package and your Wi-Fi package, that all starts working as soon as you get on the ship. Also at the buffet, what we do is we check out the Wi-Fi. There is free Wi-Fi when you're using the app on your phone, no matter what cruise line you're on. So just know that. But there are some paid versions and paid things that you need to do on the app sometimes in order for certain features to work. So know that ahead of time that it's not always going to be free. And once you step on the ship, it becomes a cashless system. Before you get on the ship, you need to upload some sort of credit card onto your app. And that is the thing that will be charged when you get off the ship. So before you get on, whether you pre register or you register at the port, they will have your credit card on file, and each person can have their own credit card, but every person has to have their credit card on file. And that credit card is the one that will be charged at the end of the cruise. In your app, you'll be able to see what is being charged. And then the last day before you get off, they'll charge your credit card and you get off the cruise. We'll talk about that in another video of getting off a cruise. So the last part about an embarkation day is that your room is ready. And again, different rooms might be ready at different times, but they do close the whole like hallways typically to the rooms. And then they'll make an announcement over the ship that yes, your rooms are now available. You will go to your rooms and your keys are normally hanging on the door in some way, and each person will have a key. Even if you have it on an app, each person will have a key. So on that key, it will say your name, it will say your muster station, it will say your um, if you have any like packages, like soda package, drink package, dining package, anything like that, it will say that. And that is a new thing that is also happening is muster stations. So these are the safety videos that are happening. Now, depending on your comfortability of the app, in the app, they will show you videos of safety videos of what to do in case of an emergency if you need to use those lifeboats. And you will watch those videos. And once you've watched those videos, then it is your job to go to that muster station, which is on your key when you go into your room, or it's also in the app. And like ours was W13. Well, what does that mean? Um, it just told us that we had to go to a specific bar on deck 6 and check in with someone, and that is where we were to go if there was an emergency. And so after our room was ready, we watched the video in our room on our phones. Then we went to that muster station and checked in. My son got I don't know what the cutoff is. It's different for different cruise lines, but he got a bracelet that said his muster station and his name that he had to wear the whole cruise just in case there was an emergency and we weren't with him, that he knew where to go. So that's important to know too. So once your room is ready, obviously you can be in your room. We took naps, you could do whatever you want. It was around 1:30, 1:45, and we were leaving around 5 o'clock. So you can go around and look at the ship at this point. You can get ready for your dining. You can go swimming. There's all different types of things that you could do. You can start unpacking, but your checked bags probably have not arrived. Our bags did arrive before dinner, so we didn't have any concern about that. But you just need to know that the bags might come at different times. You don't need to stay in your room once you have your key. You can go out and about. You can go back to the buffet. You could just kind of explore and see what there is on this cruise. And that's sort of the fun part about cruising, is really exploring that ship. Okay, so that will do it for today's show about what it's like to embark on a cruise ship. And of course, there's going to be variations depending on what cruise line you're on, but a lot of them are very similar. And this will help you to feel a little more comfortable when you're getting on a cruise. Some people make it sound so hard and so difficult, but it's really not, as long as you understand that it's just going to take you about an hour to 90 minutes once you arrive at the port to actually get on the ship. And once you're on the ship, you just ask anyone. There's people everywhere. The crew members on all these ships are so fantastic. They're just there to help you and they want you to have an amazing time. So you really can just ask a bunch of questions. You don't have to have all the answers. And there's no set schedule once you get on. That's the fun part. Some people might want to do something and others might want to do different things. So you kind of decide what it is that you want to do, and that's what you end up doing. All right, that will do it for today's show. Again, if you like this video, if you could like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification button to get more information. And I will see you next time on Magical Travel Adventure. Bye.